All right, guys, we're going to be starting this up very shortly. Just give us a few minutes here to get set up, and we'll get rolling with this fishing seminar Q&A. If you want to learn more about offshore fishing and nearshore fishing, stay tuned. We will be starting the stream very shortly, right around 8:30ish. Just got a few more things to do here, and we'll get rolling with the live fishing seminar and Q&A. Thanks for your patience. Guys, give me a few more seconds here. We'll get rolling on this live fishing seminar and Q&A. If you want to learn more about offshore and nearshore fishing, you're in the right spot. Stay tuned. Just another minute. Good night, y'all. How you guys doing? Dylan Hubbard here from Hubbard's Marina on this beautiful July 8th Sunday night, 8:30 p.m. coming at you live with this fishing seminar and Q&A. Here to answer any of your questions about nearshore and offshore fishing. Here to talk to you guys about whatever you want to hear about. We're live on Facebook, YouTube, a couple different pages here, folks. So make sure you leave a comment, ask your fishing questions, nearshore, offshore, fishing related, or anything you want to know about Hubbard's Marina. And over the next hour, I will try to answer as many questions as I can. Now, again, we're live to multiple different pages across a couple different platforms here. So I'm going to work really hard to answer everything, but if I don't get to your question, don't fret. I'll get back to it over time and try to answer it on the keyboard if I don't answer it live. So thanks for tuning in tonight, guys. Again, this is every Sunday night, 8:30 p.m. to 9:30ish. Sometimes we run a little late. My name's Captain Dylan Hubbard from Hubbard's Marina. Hubbard's Marina has been fishing local waters since 1928. My great-grandfather started our company with 7 rowboats and 14 cane poles. So I'm blessed to be the son of a son of a son of a sailor, and I've picked up some fishing tips and tricks over the years, and hopefully tonight I'm going to share some of those with you. And I hope you enjoy this video, this live stream, and we're checking out some new technology here. And last night we did a test drive. It was a little choppy. Tonight I'm hoping I fix some of those issues, but we are also in the process of getting some new toys that's going to help smooth this out even more. So if it's a little choppy tonight, bear with me. Next week it's going to get even better. And once we iron this all out, I hope to invite some guests and stuff like that out on the page as well. So going to be really cool. See what changes up, what shakes loose with this whole bad boy. All right, so let's see what questions we got so far. Mo Man said, how about those gags? We've been catching a lot of gags lately at Hubbard's Marina, especially that week around the full moon. The gag bite was going very, very well. Unfortunately, the gags have slowed down just a little bit, but the red grouper have picked up quite a bit to kind of replace that gag grouper void that was left. Also, Mangrove Snapper have been biting really well, so it's good to see the Mangrove Snapper start to pick back up. The Mangrove Snapper bite was a little soft this spring, a little slow for us, but it's finally starting to get back to normal for us as far as the Mangrove Snapper goes. So hopefully the Mangrove Snapper continue to bite well for us, and we're looking forward to a great rest of the summer. Not only are the Mangrove Snapper biting well, the red grouper are biting well, we've also got Hogfish biting well near shore. Red Snapper is open till July 22nd at 12:01 a.m. So we have a lot more time left in Red Snapper season, about 14 to 15 more days. So a lot of stuff's going on, guys. So plus the snook bite near shore. We catching a lot of snook near shore today. A gentleman, Hayden Kokoza from Pinellas Park area, was fishing off our dock, catching a bunch of nice snook with his buddies. So snook are biting near shore. Also, the mangrove snapper are biting well inshore as well. So mangrove snapper biting well inshore, near shore, and offshore. The trolling's been a little slow lately. Haven't been doing too hot on the trolling, but we are still seeing the occasional kingfish being caught. A lot of cobia around right now. That's the interesting thing, definitely. If you guys are just tuning in, remember this is every Sunday night, 8:30 p.m. The goal is to answer your questions live, so make sure you comment with your questions. Help me out, share the video, and if you enjoy fishing, click like or give me a thumbs up. And thanks for tuning in. So let's see here. Gabriel Gizbazen said 3 39-hour trips back to back to back, ready for another. Thanks, Gabriel, for joining us at Hubbard's Marina. Remember, if you're too busy to go fishing, you're just too busy. A good one, Danny Corvin. He said, I must be watching the Travis Pastrana jump. I don't know who, or I know who Travis Pastrana is, but I didn't know he was doing a jump or something special tonight, but that sounds pretty cool. The stream starting soon screen is something cool that allows me to kind of get the video set up. Because we're streaming across different platforms, I got to get the video set up. So it takes me a few minutes in the beginning. So instead of doing the video and you just watching me type, I'm able to throw that screen up while I do some busy work. So apologize for the delay, but we are rolling. Don't forget to comment your questions. Give me a thumbs up if you're enjoying it. Let's see if we got any fishing questions here. Stephen Weber said, going on a 12-hour extreme trip this Friday. I want to catch a personal best red snapper. Any advice? Well, Stephen, the best advice I can give you to catch a personal best red snapper is use the right tackle. Right now, about 60 to 80 pound test. A 7/0 circle would work. I like circle hooks for red snapper because they come up and slam that bait and run. About 60 to 80 pound test, a nice reel with at least 45 to 50 pounds of drag, or a big ugly 6 or 9/0 reel, and I would definitely use a strip of bonita, has been working really well, or a big live pinfish. Also, we've been catching them on squid, but seems like the strips of bonita have been the best bite as of lately. It seems the video is a little choppy again tonight, guys. So as far as that goes, I apologize. We are in the process of procuring some new tools, and next week that should help our choppiness. But the audio should not be choppy, so unfortunately you might have a choppy video, but a good sound quality, hopefully, is what I'm going for. And next week we'll have a much clearer, smoother video. Gary Bresnick said, that was a great video you made on venting fish. Well, Gary, that wasn't my video. That was Salt Strong. My buddies at Salt Strong here. I'm working with them. We did a grouper mastery course. And I'm also going to be doing a snapper fishing mastery course with Salt Strong. So the guys at Salt Strong have been filming a lot of stuff, and I've been working with National Marine Fisheries on venting outreach. So that was all part together. I was just happened to be filming with Salt Strong, happened to be working with National Marine Fisheries on venting and descending outreach to prevent barotrauma and try to lower dead discards. So it just all kind of came together, and I appreciate the guys at Salt Strong for doing that for me. And we actually, besides that video on venting, we actually created a whole kind of web page on the proper techniques to vent fish. Venting fish is super, super important. And hopefully everybody listening to this video knows how to vent a fish. and has the proper techniques and tools in their toolbox. If you don't, leave a comment in the video. I'll be happy to point you out to that page Salt Strong made for me, and we'll definitely get that information out there because it's important. Paul Volkert said, do you have any videos on the bunk layouts other than just numbers? Never been before and understand the fishing spot, but no idea how the bunks on the 39-hour plus trips work. Well, Paul, we have never done a video of the bunk layouts, but we do have the photo of the bunk layouts on our website, on our booking page, and also on every 39, 44, and 63-hour page is a link to get to the photo of the layout of the boat. And how it works is bunks 1 through 24 are downstairs in the air-conditioned cabin. Bunks 25 and above are upstairs on the top deck. And the even number bunks are the bottom bunks. The odd number bunks are the top bunks. So you can always choose whether you want to go downstairs or upstairs based on the odd or even numbers, or based on 1 through 24 being downstairs, odd numbers being top bunks, even numbers being bottom bunks. Everybody gets a spot to fish and a bunk, so when you book your trip, you got to not only pick a spot to fish, but also pick a bunk. You'd be interested to find out how many times we have people book 39 and 44-hour trips online and forget to pick out a bunk, or forget to pick out a spot. So it's pretty funny. So make sure you pick out a spot and a bunk when you're booking. And again, odd numbers are top bunks, even numbers are bottom bunks. And 1 through 24 is downstairs, 25 and above is upstairs. So I think we just made that video you were asking for there, Paul. And if you have any more questions, Paul, if I wasn't clear enough, feel free to ask us again. And thanks for your interest in doing a long-range trip with us. Ron Moore said, when is the best time to go out for big gags and what trip? The best time to go out for big gag grouper, Ron, is any month ending in ER. Months ending in ER, such as September, October, November, December, any month ending in ER is always the best time of the year for gag grouper. My personal favorite time of year to go fishing for gags is November. November seems to be a really, really good time of year to go hit the gag grouper, especially around Thanksgiving. But you do have to worry about cold fronts. Cold fronts start sometime in October, and those cold fronts will run through, say, February, March of the following year. So these cold fronts come every 3 to 4, 5, 6 days, and they really mess up the weather. The fishing's really good ahead of a front, and it's really good 3 or 4 or 5 days after a front when the weather kind of stabilizes. So you have to kind of time your trips around the cold fronts. But the gag grouper fishing is really, really good in the fall for that reason. I do want to reiterate to you guys, I apologize for the choppiness in the video tonight. We will have that worked out, hopefully by next week. Unfortunately, this cool new software we got doesn't run too well on my super cool laptop computer. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to upgrade to a more powerful desktop, and that will cure my choppiness problems, or so I've been told. And we're working on it, guys, so I apologize for any choppiness. And hopefully I answered your question, Ron, as far as what time of year. As far as what trip is best, I would definitely suggest our longer trips. Specialty trip is a must. To try to get that huge gag, like a 12-hour extreme, a 39-hour, or a 44-hour. I would suggest a 39 or 44-hour all the time, because you just get more fishing time. More fishing time enables you to have a better chance of trying to get that bigger fish. So definitely try to shoot for a 39 or 44-hour trip sometime in the fall. And I would say you'd have a good shot at them. I mean, you get a 2-day bag limit, so you're allowed twice as many grouper as you're normally allowed as well. So I would say the fall, any month ending in ER, and the 39-hour would be your best bet, Ron. So Donnie Gwynn said, circle hooks only. If so, which ones for snapper and grouper would you recommend? I'll be on the July 13th 39-hour trip. I would suggest the best size hooks for the snapper being somewhere in the 6/0 range. You could get away with some 5/0s. You could get away with some 7/0s. But I like using the 6/0 hooks for the mangrove snapper, for the smaller snapper species. If the bite's slow, I might drop down to 5/0 hooks with around 40-pound test. But most of the time, I'm going to be rocking 6/0 hooks with 50 to 60-pound test on that 39-hour trip for snapper. And then as far as the grouper goes, I would probably do more like 7, 8/0 for the red grouper and the smaller gags when I'm using dead bait. And then when I'm using big live bait, I would probably go up to the 9, 10, probably solid 10/0 range, maybe even 12/0 range, depending on the size of my live bait. Probably like a 10/0 hook with a 100-pound test, and then like a 12/0 hook with a 125-pound test would be my hook size for that 39-hour trip. And again, it really just depends on you and what you're fishing for, the size reel and rod you have. As far as circle hooks, the rule is when you're offshore fishing for bottom reef species with natural bait, you have to use circle hooks. However, we are not in charge of enforcing that rule. So if you decide to use something other than circle hooks, that is on you. If you rent a rod and reel from us, we have to provide circle hooks because that's the law. Me personally, when I'm using my personal tackle on my personal rod, I generally will use circle hooks for red snapper, amberjack, grouper. Anything that comes up and swallows that hook and runs is going to be a circle hook. And then I prefer using J hooks for the quicker biting snapper, like mangrove snapper, yellowtail snapper, vermilion snapper, porgies, those kind of fish. I'll use J hooks, and typically a double snell J hook on my personal rod. But very important that I use a de-hooking device. I use this de-hooker. That way, as soon as that fish comes out of the water, if it's a short grouper or an out-of-season fish, I can de-hook that quick. I can vent that fish and then de-hook that fish very quickly and get it back down to bottom. The idea behind that circle hook rule was just to make sure that they prevented or tried to reduce the amount of dead discarded fish. Because they claim circle hooks always get hooked in the corner of the mouth, and it allows fishermen to release those fish more successfully. But in my experience, in my opinion, as long as you're using a de-hooking device quickly and efficiently, it doesn't matter what type of hook you're using, as long as you're venting that fish properly and quickly and de-hooking that fish properly and quickly, that fish is going to survive nearly just about anything. But you know how that goes. Ivan said, new toys, you getting a new boat? I wish I was getting a new boat. We've been talking about some new boats. We definitely don't rule us out on not getting new boats, but we'll see what happens here. Ivan, the gags have slowed down a little bit, but they are not gone. We're still catching a lot of big gags. Captain Anthony on the Flying Hub 2 came in from a 12-hour private charter the other day with 24 grouper, and a majority of those were gags, and that was just 2 or 3 days ago. But on the 39-hour trip, this last trip that came in this morning, they had a huge pile of red snapper, a huge pile of mangrove snapper, and then they had some nice grouper, mostly big red grouper, with some nice gags mixed in. So the gags aren't gone, but the red grouper bite has become a little bit more predominant, is all we were trying to say. Danny Corvin said, what's the best hook? I already kind of went over the sizes, Danny, so I assume you're asking about the brand. I use a lot of the Offshore Angler Bass Pro Shops hooks, and then I also prefer my owner hooks. I really like the owner hooks when I'm snapper fishing, and then for grouper fishing, I like the Mustad live bait hooks. and the Gamakatsu hooks. The Gamakatsu makes a really good hook as well. But I have no set, oh my gosh, this is the hook I gotta use, except for with Mangrove Snapper. I love my owner hooks. Owner hooks really make a good hook for the snapper, in my opinion. My cousin Garrett, he doesn't like the owner hooks because they have a small barb. I like the owner hooks because they have a small barb. That small barb and that thin wire hook allows me to drive that hook home into a mangrove snapper's mouth very quickly, very easily. They also go into your fingers very quickly and very easily, just FYI. But they go into the fish really easy. It's really easy to set that hook. But they do pop off the hook easily because that barb is so small. So keep that in mind when you hook a fish with those thin barb hooks. You got to keep pressure on that fish, because if you slow down at all, he's going to be able to spit that hook really easily, especially if you're not using that top shot. So keep that in mind. Kevin Wildheart said, how are the Friday night snapper trips been doing? They've been pretty steady, Kevin. Not super crazy by any means, but the good anglers have been doing really well out there on those 12-hour night snapper trips. So they're hit and miss. We have some good ones, some slow ones, but if you're an experienced angler who knows what they're doing and you're using the proper tackle and proper techniques, they've been pretty good. I know I had a buddy go out there on the 12-hour night snapper, and between him and his buddy caught almost a dozen keeper mangrove snappers. So definitely been steady, depending on your skill level. Let's see if we got some other questions here. Jason Peterson said he likes the backdrop. Thanks, Jason, for tuning in, buddy. Always good to hear from the Petersons. Most of you guys know Dusty Peterson. He's the main man who takes all our half-day fishing photos and is the brains behind the operation of the Smokey and Dusty show. But Jason Peterson and Vince Peterson are Dusty's older brothers. And they used to work with us as well. Whole Peterson family pretty much has worked with us, and it's been a great partnership, to say the least. They're good guys. Learned a lot from Jason and Vince Peterson. And now Dusty and I work together, and I learn a lot from Dusty. He's an iPhone magician, let me tell you. All right, Tom Brown said, how's Pappy doing? Pappy's doing good, man. We're all busy in red snapper season. Pappy worked 3 trips yesterday. So needless to say, Pappy is a little bit busy right now. Ooh, oh, that's a good good tea. So Pappy's doing good, staying busy, and fishing's good. Pappy's good. Yeah, Pappy actually did that 44-hour private charter with myself and Captain Garrett. That was pretty cool. To see him out there, and he did a really good job on that long-range trip. So everybody's kind of sharing the love right now and working hard. So to answer your question, Tom, Pappy is doing good. Ken Mercer said, what depth would you start to target hogfish? I would say I'd probably start targeting hogfish about 35, 40 foot of water on average. You can catch hogfish as shallow as 20 foot of water. A lot of guys target hogfish pretty shallow. I like to start to target hogfish around the 35, 40 foot range. And I did well on the hogfish the other day in about 45, 43 foot of water. So the hogfish are near shore fish for sure. You can catch hogfish out in 170, 180 foot of water. But we typically catch most of our hogfish anywhere from about 30 foot of water out to about 70 foot of water. If you're just tuning in, guys, I want to reiterate again, I'm sorry, the video is choppy. I'm doing everything I can over here to try to stop the choppiness in the video. Hopefully the audio is nice and smooth. It was on our previous tests. We are getting some new stuff to make sure the video isn't choppy next week. But unfortunately, this is what it is. We are limited on our technical support here. But we've got some teams behind the scenes, and hopefully my main man Josh at Quick Reach Media is going to get me figured out this week, and we'll have a nice smooth video next week, so I apologize. All right, so Jake said, what depth are they running on the X-Wrap trolling lures trying for tuna and kings on the 39-hour July 20th? Any help or advice would greatly be appreciated. Jake, the depth on the Rapala X-Wraps are determined by the size lure you buy. You can buy a Rapala X-Wrap 20, you can buy a Rapala X-Wrap 30, you can buy a Rapala X-Wrap 40. The number denotes the amount of feet that lure is going to dive down into the water. So the depth all depends on how far back you are. The further back you are, the deeper that plug's going to run. The closer to the boat you run that plug, the more shallow it's going to run. So the length away from the boat is what determines the depth ultimately, along with the number lure. But the length away from the boat is determined by other people trolling. If there's a guy next to you trolling 50 yards from the boat, you want to be trolling either 65 or 35 or 40 yards away from the boat. You want to stagger those lures so that way you get that spread set up. It's very important when you're trolling that you're setting up a spread, and all that means is you want your lures to be trolling somewhat in unison, meaning you want that to mimic a school of bait. So you'd never want to have one lure 10 feet from the boat and the other lure 100 feet from the boat. You would want one randomly made up. You'd want to go a little bit further than 35 foot, but hopefully you get my example there. You want to stagger those lures so the boat can turn without getting tangled, lure on lure, but you also want to keep them close enough together to where that fish looking up from the bottom is going to think that's a school of bait. So the depth is determined by you and other people around you. What's the best time to, and by the way, happy early birthday. Thanks for planning a 39-hour trip with us on your birthday. Brian Dunnigan said, what's the best time to come down for good numbers of Mangrove Snapper on the 39-hour? Well, Brian, typically I would tell you the best time to come down for good numbers of Mangrove Snapper would be April, late April, early May. And this year that was simply not the case. It was terrible for Mangrove Snapper this spring. But Mangrove Snapper have picked up quite a bit. And hopefully that Mangrove Snapper bite will continue through the summer. We catch a lot of Mangrove Snapper through the entire summer. So hopefully that'll be doing pretty good. And we'll see how that goes. But my favorite time for Mangrove Snapper is always that transition time, either spring or fall. So let's hop over to YouTube and see what YouTube questions we are getting into here. So Evan Burnett said, what's your favorite fish to target inshore and offshore? My favorite fish to target inshore, Evan, would probably be inshore targeting fish. I think pompano are one of my favorite fish to target inshore. Snook are fun, but in my area, at least with the ability we have from the dock and just the sheer number of snook we have at the dock, targeting snook inshore is a little easy inside John's Pass, at least, especially this time of year. It's just stupid easy. So I would say probably pompano would be one of my favorite fish to target inshore. Probably followed by targeting dock lights at night. I grew up with my little Carolina skiff. I had a 17-foot Carolina skiff. I mowed lawns for 2 years to purchase that boat when I turned 9 years old. And I grew up fishing dock lights on that bad boy, and I really enjoyed that. So that's probably my favorite inshore technique for sure. My favorite fish to target offshore, hands down, would be Mangrove Snapper. I love Mangrove Snapper. They eat good. They fight well. They're difficult to catch a large number consistently of nice mangroves. In my opinion, the guy who can catch Mangrove Snapper, quality Mangrove Snapper consistently, is the going to separate himself as the more experienced or higher quality angler, because they're such a quick biting, such a smart fish, and they're aggressive too. It's a lot of fun. Hogfish are cool like that because it takes a lot of skill, practice, and approach, but they're so unaggressive it can get really boring. But hogfish are fun because you're using light tackle. But I would say offshore, my favorite fish to target would be mangrove snapper, inshore. I love dock fishing at night, dock light fishing at night, but I would say probably pompano, drifting through the passes, Blinds Pass, Paso Grill, around St. Pete Beach, sight casting those schools of pompano is always a really fun time for me. So hopefully that answers your question, Evan from YouTube. Luke Starling from YouTube also said, how's the 12-hour day trip going? Luke, our 12-hour day trip on the party boat has been going okay. It's a lot like that 12-hour night snapper trip. It's a little hit and miss. We've had good days. We've had bad days. We have a video on our YouTube channel of a 12-hour private charter on the Flying Hub 2 I ran this past Thursday, the 5th. So that's June 5th. You can look up that video. It's in our daily reports playlist on YouTube. And that shows the catch from my 12-hour private charter on the Flying Hub 2. And it also shows the catch from the 12-hour party boat trip that Captain Frank ran that day with some really nice red grouper. He got 2 big cobia. So the bite's been pretty good on the 12-hour day trip. And if you know what you're doing, you can do really well out there. For example, Janice Rose and Daniel, who drive down from Gainesville, drove all the way down from Gainesville for that 12-hour day trip on the party boat, and they caught like 3 big red grouper, a couple strawberry grouper, almost limited out on grouper because of course they got some of those small strawberries, but they're very good eating. They caught some lane snapper, vermilion snapper. They caught a couple red snapper. They did very well on that 12-hour party boat trip. So you can do well out there, Luke, but it is a very short amount of fishing time. That 12-hour day trip on the party boat is the shortest amount of fishing time that we offer for red snapper during this red snapper season. So if you want to get out there, you want to go deep, the 12-hour extreme, the 39-hour are the best bets. 12-hour extreme being the best bet if you have to do a single day trip, because that trip goes 70 to 100 miles. You fish 7 to 8 hours. You're fishing the same area as our 39 and 44-hour trip, but you get home by dinner. So that 12-hour extreme is going to be a better bet in my opinion. But the 12-hour day trip has been doing pretty well. Deep Nature from YouTube said, thoughts on 2-speed Avettes for grouper and snapper. I love 2-speed reels. It's no secret my Daiwa Saltiga is my best friend. I was talking to a guy today, and he purchased one for our 39-hour trip, and hopefully he goes out there and slays the fish with it. As long as it has enough drag, it'll be fine using a 2-speed reel for a grouper, but most 2-speed reels do not have enough drag. For a big grouper, you're going to need 45, 50 pounds of drag or more. And I know Accurate ATD series has a lot of drag. I'm hoping Daiwa will come out with some larger Saltigas. I really hope to see at iCast some 2-speed reels with a star drag. That would be something that would change my life. I've been asking Daiwa about that every year for the last 4 years. So hopefully we'll see a 2-speed reel with the star drag, which they've never made before. No one's made. That's not out there at all. And then also I would love to see a 2-speed reel from Daiwa with more drag than like 50 pounds. Like a 65-pound drag 2-speed reel would be sick. But right now the only reel that I know of that has a ton of drag like that are those huge trolling reels like the Avette Raptor, the Shimano Tiagra or the Penn Internationals, those big, huge trolling reels. I'm talking like a sleek, small reel like those Daiwa Saltigas. But the LD50 is the biggest Saltiga they make, and it's only got 45 pounds of drag. If they made like an LD65 with a lot more drag, that would be sick. So here's to hoping. But yeah, as far as my thoughts on 2-speed reels for grouper and snapper, I love 2-speed reels for snapper. I will never ever stop fishing a 2-speed reel for snapper. Daiwa Saltiga LD50 being my reel of choice, but a Daiwa Saltist LD50 works fine too. It'll get the job done, but the Saltiga has more drag and it'll get the job done looking hot. But if you ask Captain Joe or Captain Anthony, they love the Shimano Talica. I've always preferred Daiwa reels. My first reel, offshore fishing reel, was a Daiwa, so I've always been a Daiwa guy since I was 5 or 6 years old when I got my first offshore setup. Still remember it to this day. It was a Daiwa 4/0 on a Chaos black and gold rod, and I beat the heck out of that thing. The rod ended up getting stolen right out of my backyard. The reel literally burned the drag out of it, so it's a good reel. Lasted quite a long time. So I just switched over to YouTube, answered some questions on YouTube. I'm going to switch back to Facebook now, answer some more questions on Facebook. If I missed your question on Facebook, don't hesitate to drop me another question. If I didn't get to your question on YouTube yet, feel free to retype it. Again, just leave your comments, leave your questions in the comments. Give me a thumbs up and if you're enjoying the video. And again, I realize the video is choppy and I apologize. We will be addressing that this week, and hopefully next week we will have a much smoother feed for you folks. So again, thanks for tuning in. Brian Ambrose said, what's the difference between our 39 and 44-hour trips besides the actual 5 hours? Good question, Brian. It's simple. The 44-hour trip is a full moon trip. So our 39-hour trip happens any Tuesday, Sunday, or Friday. We schedule one. The 44-hour trip only happens around a full moon. This year we have some weird full moon phases, so we sometimes have a 44-hour trip at the end or the beginning of the month, depending on the moon phase. But typically about one 44-hour trip a month around that full moon. And the extra 5 hours, basically a 39-hour trip, you leave at 3 p.m. Let's talk about Friday trips just because it's easy. So on a 39-hour Friday trip, you'd leave at 3 p.m. Friday. You'd come back at Sunday morning at 6 a.m. On a 44-hour trip, you'd leave 10 a.m. Friday and come back Sunday morning at 6 a.m. On a 39-hour trip, you would start fishing. You'd leave at 3 p.m. You'd start fishing about midnight to 2 a.m. Saturday morning, and you'd fish till 9 p.m., 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Saturday night. So that's how a 39-hour schedule would work. A 44-hour trip, you leave at 10 a.m. Friday. You start fishing around 7 to 9 p.m. Friday night. So you get much more night fishing time, and you still got the whole entire following day. So a 44-hour trip gives you much more fishing time on a full moon. That's the idea behind the 44-hour trip, and that's the difference between a 44 and 39-hour, Brian. Ivan said, very interested in the 63-hour, love the 39 and 44-hour, can't wait to go again. What's the best time of year to go on a 63-hour? Well, it really depends on what you want to catch, Ivan. Typically, if you want to go for a big grouper like snowy grouper, yellow edge grouper, some gags, I would go in the fall, possibly a Warsaw grouper. The fall is going to be your better bet for all that stuff because we typically run west or northwest in the fall. If you want to go for queen snapper, you want a bunch of tile fish, you want a good shot at some mutton or a big cabera, the spring would be best for your 63-hour, because in the spring we're typically running southwest or southwest. Let's see about any other questions here. I think I missed some questions on Facebook because I switched to YouTube to answer some questions there, so I apologize. Jeffrey Sibetti said, "You're saying test, do you mean leader line?" Yes, what pound test is your leader is what I was referring to, Jeffrey. So if I say 60-pound test, I'm referring to 60-pound leader. Sorry for that confusion there, buddy. Let's see what other questions we have. Gary Wilson said, been on the 12-hour trips before. So much fun. Smokey's a great mate. I agree. Smokey's a great mate. He's a pretty funny guy. He definitely makes the trip enjoyable. And the 12 hours are fun. 12-hour party boat trip is a great way to get out there and enjoy some time on the water. And for $129, you can't beat that to get 40 to 60 miles from shore on a day trip, or 25 to 35 miles from shore on a 12-hour night snapper trip and stay out all night. It's a lot of fun. So you never know what you're going to see out there as well. Let's see what other questions. John Greska said, Captain Anthony got into a solid gag bite on this past Friday's extreme trip. Also a boat limit of red snapper and a great trip overall. So that's pretty cool to hear. John Greska has been doing a lot of our 12-hour extreme trips, and that guy has been killing the fish. Caught some really big gags, some really big red snapper, and he's been fishing with us quite a bit on that 12-hour extreme. So I'm sure he's had some really nice fish over the course of the last month or so since he's been doing a lot of red snapper trips. So thanks for that report, John. Thanks for coming back out with us at Hubbard's Marina. Gary Wilson said, you got to pull those gags fast when they hit. And that can't be more true, Gary. Gag grouper, they hit like a freight train, and most of the time, before you even know it, they've rocked you up. The stretch in your monofilament line is going to allow that fish to get in his rock, rock you up and break you off well before you know what hit you. So very important, when you feel that fish biting, you put the hammer down. Put it down and reel as fast as you can, as hard as you can, until you can't reel no more. And then once you've reeled all the way down, you lift up, and then you reel back down. And I like doing really short pumps. So you just lift that rod up maybe 15, 20 degrees as hard as you can, and then reel down. And you do that about 5-10 times, as fast and as hard and as aggressively as you can, while trying to stay smooth. Then once you've got that fish up off the bottom, you back down your drag a little bit, you slow down, and you just finesse that fish. Keep that rod steady. If he digs, you give him some leeway with the tip of the rod. And if he's not digging, you're just steady cranking, slow, steady, and smooth. So with the gag grouper, put the hammer down, real short pumps, do the grouper dance, get that stretch out of that line as quickly and as fast as possible, and beat that fish up. Get him off the bottom. Once you've got him off the bottom, then it's a slow, steady retrieve. Get that fish to the boat. But the first part is hard and fast. Once you've got him up off the bottom, it's all about finesse. So great comment, Gary. Michael Murphy, double hook versus single hook. Double hook is a must, in my opinion, when you're fishing for mangrove snapper. So I like cutting the head off the thread, cutting the tail off the thread fin, trimming the belly on that thread fin, brining my baits, and then I take that brine, sardine, or thread fin plug, and I put 2 hooks into that bad boy, a double snell rig, right on our YouTube page or right on our fishing tips page of our website. You can find that video on how to tie a double snell rig. So double hooks when I'm using those dead baits, especially for the snapper. I'll even double hook my dead bait when fishing for grouper. If I'm fishing for red grouper with a strip of squid, I'll use 2 7/0 circle hooks and use a long strip of squid wing, which we have the squid wings back, which is awesome. Great news there. And then if I'm using a big dead bait, big old piece of dead bait for red grouper or gags, typically I would go single hook. When I'm live bait fishing, typically a single hook. Unless I'm using a small live bait for mangroves, then I would use a double hook rig and put that live bait on my bottom hook. So hopefully that answers your question. Double hook for snapper, single hook for live bait fishing or grouper fishing. Ron Moore said, when is the next time I'll be at Bass Pro Shops? Thank you for the plug, Ron. Bass Pro Shops, shout out to you. Tampa Bass Pro Shops, July 28th, 2 p.m. is the next time I'll be there, Ron. We'll be giving away a free 10-hour all day for 2 people and a free 5-hour half day for 2 people, July 28th at 2 p.m. at Bass Pro Shops. And we have the July 17th, Tuesday, July 17th, we'll be at GT Marine in Clearwater with the Flats Mafia radio show and GT Marine. I'll be doing a seminar, fishing conversation there. And GT Marine and Flats Mafia will be giving away $15,000 in prizes. I didn't stutter. That's $15,000 in prizes at my fishing seminar, July 17th. So be there, be square. They're even giving away 2, might even be 3 free motors. A free motor at that July 17th. Tight Lines Tuesday with Flats Mafia Radio. So definitely join me for that fishing seminar. Other thing we got coming up, Ron, is the Tampa Bay Fishing Club 40,000 member giveaway. That's coming up this Saturday at Gators on the Pass. You can check out Tampa Bay Fishing Club. You can see the post. You can get entered to win a 39 or 44-hour trip with us at Hubbard's Marina. They're giving away kayaks. We're giving away 10 hours, 5 hours. They're giving away a bunch of stuff. And we're going to have a party this Saturday around 4 p.m. at Gators on the Pass with Tampa Bay Fishing Club. So we got a lot of events coming up. This Saturday, July 14th, Gators on the Pass. July 17th, Tight Lines Tuesday with Flats Mafia. And then July 28th, 2 p.m., Bass Pro. So thanks for bringing that up, Ron. If you're just joining, again, we know the video is a little choppy. It's going to get better next week. We got some tricks up our sleeve. We're building a new computer and getting some other stuff to make this stuff run more smoothly, so we apologize. Comment with your questions. Give me a thumbs up if you're enjoying the video. Lisa Sheffield said, do you guys have Luna C big game? All right. I assume you mean something else other than you typed. But no, I don't know what you're talking about, Lisa Pickens Sheffield. I don't think we have that in the shop, so I apologize. Gary Wilson said, loved when your granddad came to the Wilsons to fish and grill with my dad. They loved going out to gig all night. Amazing fish they got. Time for a cookout with family. Very cool, Gary. Interesting story. I love hearing some of the stories from back in the day. There was always some interesting fishing stories for sure. So thanks for tuning in, Gary. Let's see what other questions we have here. Nick Trapani said, do you need to use fluorocarbon for grouper in deep water? Is that not necessary? I personally love using fluorocarbon. That's just about all I use when I'm fishing out there in the deep water. Fishing near shore, fishing anywhere. I love using fluorocarbon. It seems to work really well. Let's see what other questions we have here. Chris Jimmy, Michael Jimmy, thanks for tuning in, y'all. Chris Morris said, do you ever fish up in Hernando or Sitrus? No, don't fish up that way too often. Occasionally I'll run way offshore of Hernando or Sitrus when I run way up north, but most of the time we're fishing around this area, central West Florida, Tampa Bay area, Pinellas County area, or somewhere out west of here. Don't make it up that way too often. All right. Does Hubbard's offer any kayak trips? We used to offer a kayak mothership trip. Nowadays, we offer kayak rentals, but we don't offer any necessarily kayak trips. We do have a kayak fishing guide, and you can do a guided kayak fishing tour with us at Hubbard's Marina. But we don't offer any specific kayak trips offshore anymore. We did used to do a kayak mothership trip, though. It was pretty cool. We took kayaks like 35, 40 miles into the Gulf, put the kayaks in the water, and people paddled around and caught fish out in the middle of the Gulf with kayaks. It was pretty cool. But that's over. Not much interest in that for some reason. Jake said, what depth are they catching tuna and kings at? Unfortunately, the trolling has not been that good, as I said earlier in the video. But we have been seeing tuna and kingfish out deep, especially on our long-range trips. So, Jake, I think you said it was your birthday coming up July 20th. Happy birthday. I look forward to fishing with you on our 39-hour for your birthday, Jake. And typically on those trips, your nighttime bite, flatlining at night after you've been sitting on a spot for a while, is your best opportunity to catch some of those tuna or kingfish. Russ said, do you go out with the 39 hours? Yes, I occasionally get to go on some fishing trips. I've been running a lot of fishing trips lately, but typically I do more private charters. When guests request me as a captain, that gets me out fishing for sure. So hint, hint, you book a trip, request me. Who's going to ICAST? Russ said, I'll be at ICAST. I'll see you there. Hopefully some of you guys will see me there. I look forward to seeing some of you guys there. Braided Line, Larry Bledsoe asks, what do you think about Braided Line? I think I like Braided Line when I'm fishing inshore, when I'm fishing snapper, for snapper in deeper water. Whenever I need heightened sensitivity, like for hogfish near shore, Braided Line is great. Oh, jigging. When I'm jigging, I love Braided Line. When I'm trolling, I like Braided Line. When I'm shark fishing, I like Braided Line. When I'm grabbing the line to pull a fish in, I hate Braided Line. When I get tangled, I hate Braided Line. When the boat's full, I hate Braided Line. When you catch a fish and you don't have any stretch and that fish spits the hook, I hate Braided Line. So you gotta have a good mix, and the way you do that, Larry, is by using that top shot. On the Hubbard's Marina website, we have that fishing tips page. You go to hubbardsmarina.com, you click fishing trips, and then you click fishing tips. That fishing tips page has a whole article I wrote about Braided Line and why it doesn't work when you fish straight braid. But if you put a top shot on it, it does work. You can get away with it. I use more top shot when I'm fishing a busier trip. When there's less people on the boat, I'll shorten up my top shot when I'm vertical jigging or when I'm fishing for snapper. But when fishing for grouper, I still use a really long top shot because I want that stretch a little bit. John said, do you notice a difference in fish shows and deep water presentation between pre and post fronts? Yes, fish shows change. Cold fronts make fish move. As a cold front approaches, fish get really excited. They feed really well, feed very actively. Behind a cold front, fish tend to get grouped up on some larger bottoms. So definitely you would notice a bigger show behind or post cold front. Let's go back to YouTube, answer some YouTube questions here. Deep Nature said Saltiga 250 question mark. No, I was talking about a Saltiga LD50. So that's a Saltiga lever drag 50. So it's a lever drag 2-speed reel, or an LD50 Saltiga. Works really, really well for those big mangrove snapper, really almost any size red snapper, almost any size red grouper, and most gag grouper. It's got 45 pounds of drag. It's a really, really nice reel, and I would put it up against a Shimano Talica 16 any day of the week, and in my opinion, Saltiga would take the cake. But that's my opinion. Everybody's got their own. You know that saying. Chesapeake Hunter said snook fishing with jigs or swim baits in the inlets. Since we're mostly nearshore and offshore fishermen here at Hubbard's Marina, I don't claim to be any type of snook fishing expert, but my personal favorite way to target snook this time of year would be live bait. They're spawning right now. They're super aggressive. So live bait seems to work really well. I like a tail hooked pigfish or a large jumbo shrimp, which is nearly impossible to find this time of year. Remember, every year around July 4th, shrimp become almost impossible for people to catch, bait shops to sell. So it's very difficult to get live shrimp this time of year. And when you do eventually get live shrimp around a week or two after July 4th, they're this big. So unfortunately, jumbo shrimp will be tough to come by, nearly impossible to come by over the course of the next couple weeks. So if you go to your local bait shop, they're out of shrimp, don't get mad at them. And then in a week or two, when they have shrimp and they're the size of your pinky finger or pinky toe, again, don't get mad at them. Also, a really good bait lately for the snook around our docks has been the fish carcasses. A lot of people catching some really big snook today. Hayden Kokoza, the guy I was talking about before, caught a 39-inch snook on one of those fish carcasses. So, how far out are the middle grounds? Someone asked. Mr. Chasing Dreams, Living Life on YouTube said, how far out are the middle grounds? The middle grounds are anywhere from about 70 to 73 miles from Johns Pass, Madeira Beach, that is, all the way out to about maybe 95, 90-ish miles. So the middle grounds are a large area northwest of Johns Pass. A really good fishing area, but in my opinion, it's a little played out. It's kind of like red snapper. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, red snapper is the best fish ever. I want red snapper. Well, in my opinion, hogfish are better eaten. Scamp grouper is way better eaten. Mangrove snapper are hands down better eaten. There's a lot of way better eaten fish out there than a red snapper, in my opinion. And the middle grounds is a great fishing area, don't get me wrong, but you also have the little elbow, you have the big elbow, you have the 40 break, you have a lot of potholes east and west of the middle grounds elbow, little elbow. You have the pipeline. You have a ton of ledges out there. There's a lot of good fishing areas off central west coast of Florida besides the middle grounds. So many people just say, I'm going to go fish the middle grounds. And a lot of the time of year, there's fish more generally are populous over here and not over here. So you have to know where you're going in the middle grounds as well. But to answer your question, how far out of the middle grounds? 70 to 90 miles. I always overanalyze things and give long-winded answers, but I guess that's a good thing when I'm doing these videos. I don't know. Ooh. Daryl Gross said, please recommend a great cast net brand and size. Daryl Gross, I trap my pinfish, so I do not throw cast nets. But I can tell you, hands down, without a doubt, best cast net around is a Barracuda tackle cast net. Barracuda tackle will replace your cast net for half price. Even if you take that thing out of the bucket and throw it over the rocks and rip the entire thing up, as long as you bring them the lead line and the horn, they'll replace your cast net for half price. You can't beat that lifetime guarantee on the cast net. That's how good quality the net is. So Barracuda Cast Nets is awesome. It's a great company. Awesome guy who runs the place. He's a veteran. Really cool dude, and strongly recommend Barracuda Tackle just based on the merits of the guy who runs the company. And I know it's a good net because some of the best in the business throw it. Mike Goodwine, Brooksy Hall, Lori Deaton, John Gunter, a lot of those guys, some of the best inshore guides around throw those Barracuda cast nets, and they wouldn't throw it unless it was an awesome net. As far as size net, bro, I'm the wrong guy. I don't throw cast nets. But I would use a large, at least a 10-foot net, maybe even 12-foot if you could open it. Bigger is always better. Those down in a small 6-pack cooler with a thin layer of ice and a heavy layer of salt. And I repeat until my 6-pack cooler is full. Then I might do a cup or two of some warm salt water on top to get that ice to start melting. But that's all I do. A little bit of ice, a little bit of bait, and a whole lot of salt. And you let that melt over time during your fishing trip. And you get this brown, salty liquid that makes the bait more rigid and more juicy on the inside. So the outside's rigid and hard, the inside's mushy and gushing with some good oils, and brine bait works very well for the snapper species. Chesapeake Hunter on YouTube said, do you allow braid on the party boats? Yes, we allow braid on the party boats, but only if you use a top shot. We have, again, a whole entire fishing tips page, guys, where all these past Q&As are listed. A bunch of my Bass Pro Shops fishing seminars are how to tie double snell rigs, how to pick the best fishing day, a ton of videos on our fishing tips page, plus whole articles on how to pick the best day for fishing, braided line questions. All that information is right on our website, hubbardsmarina.com. Click fishing trips, and then in the drop down menu click fishing tips. It's also under the info tab of hubbardsmarina.com. You can click fishing tips. That fishing tips page is going to have tons of information. But yes, short answer is yes, we allow braid on the party boats, but only if you're using a top shot and only if it's not causing a problem. If it causes problems, we'll ask you to use one of our rental rods with the all mono. Larry said, what do you think about fishing in Key West, Florida? Key West is awesome. I love fishing in Key West. It's a lot of fun down there. Really good food, really nice people, beautiful area. But Key West does not have the grouper fishery we do here in central west coast of Florida. If I knew what I knew about the Gulf of Mexico now, and I went anywhere in the world, if I could choose anywhere to fish in the entire world, I would choose this area because of our topography, because of our grouper population. Johns Pass, Madeira Beach has been the grouper capital of the world because of our vast population of grouper fishing longline boats back in the day. Now, because of regulations and commercial fishing downsizing and the allocation-based management in the commercial fishery, our current commercial fishery shrunk down to nothing. And we're not the grouper capital of the world anymore because there's no huge booming commercial grouper fishery. But definitely still the place to go. And anywhere in North America, if you want to catch grouper, Johns Pass, Madeira Beach, the Mecca. So yes, I love Key West. If you want to go get some yellowtail snapper, if you want to go catch a bonefish, if you want to go snorkeling or diving, Key West is awesome. Lobster, they have a great sword fishery down there. They catch a lot of billfish down there. They catch good mutton snapper down there. But in my opinion, anything you can catch in the Keys, you can catch here in our area too. You just might have to work a little harder on some of it. But we have the better grouper population, and in my opinion, we have a more steady supply of larger snappers. For example, their mangroves down in the Keys are little babies. You'll catch a few big ones, and there's some really good guides down in the Keys that put you on a lot of awesome fish. So don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the Keys suck. They have a lot of good fishing boats. Some of my favorite fishing boats down there catch a lot of good fish, like Captain Nick Stanzik on my favorite dream boat in the world. I was actually in Key West for the National Marine Fisheries meeting in June, and I was driving back from the National Marine Fisheries meeting on the little highway there in the Keys. And I'm driving along, and I look over off the bridge, and there's Nick Stanzik and his pelagic boat flying that 42 Freeman he has, and I was really jealous. It's a beautiful boat, and I drove by Bloody Mary's, and I was going to try to catch him and say hello, but I missed it. So maybe I'll see him at ICAST, and I can tell him the story, but definitely some good fishermen that live down there in the Keys that catch plenty of good fish. But I would fish here, Larry. You're going to have a great time in central west coast of Florida. Even if you don't fish with me, I would recommend it. So that looks like all of our questions. Oh, we got some more YouTube questions. Yep, a lot of baby gags and red grouper inside Tampa Bay. That's true. Our grouper population is definitely doing well right now. I was fishing in about 120 to 150 foot the other day, catching a ton of baby red groupers. There's all this worry at the National Marine Fisheries. Commercial fishermen are saying the red grouper are gone. They're disappearing. There's no more red grouper, but I see a lot of red grouper lately. So whatever. Let's see, what other questions do we have? Russ Prasad said, I'm going on the 17th of this month for the first time. Got my 2-speed with mono, but on the 39 hour, can I troll with braid? Russ, you can fish with braid anytime you want on any of our trips. We allow braid, but you got to use a top shot. For trolling, you can fish or you can troll braid, no problem, but you got to use a long leader to make sure that braid isn't going all the way to your bait so you can catch more fish. So yes, you can use braided line. Yes, you can troll braided line, but you should, and we would recommend that you use a top shot or a long leader to prevent that fish from seeing your braid. Also, another question from Russ was, would you recommend white bait for the 39 hour? Well, we provide white bait in essence. We provide thread fins. They work very well. If you want to bring some frozen greenbacks or other white bait, you're welcome to. I wouldn't recommend and I wouldn't try to bring live white bait because there's no way you're going to keep them alive. During that 7 to 9 hour ride out there. They're gonna die, and then they're gonna kill other bait in the wells. So you can't bring live white bait because they're impossible to keep alive. But you're welcome to bring some frozen white bait if you want, Russ. But we do provide thread fins on the boat. Jake said, what pound test do you recommend for the tuna and hook size going to run a braid to fluorocarbon setup? Jake, I would use either a 4/0 conventional reel or a large spinning reel for the tuna. And I would run anywhere from 30 to 40 pound of braided line, so you have a ton of line capacity. And then I would run about a 40 to 50 pound fluorocarbon, maybe about 15 feet of it. And then I would run about a 5/0 circle hook with a tail hooked pinfish, or just a thread fin hooked through the eyes with a single 5/0 hook, and just let that go into the current. And that's how I would try to target those tuna at night on your upcoming birthday 39 hour. Greg Armstrong said, what's the biggest tip you can give someone just starting deep sea bottom fishing? Greg, the biggest tip for offshore fishing, bottom fishing, I got my dad's 3 golden rules of party boat fish, or 3 golden rules of offshore fishing. I'm gonna hit you with, Greg. So my biggest tip for starting out offshore fishing would be learn the 3 golden rules. So my biggest one tip is 3 rules. That's hooking your bait naturally. You got to hook your bait so it doesn't spin. When you're fishing in deep water, if your bait's spinning on the way to bottom, it's going to tangle up your main line and you're not going to catch any fish. So hook your bait properly so it doesn't spin. Second rule is making sure you're holding bottom. So often I'll see people come out there and just hold their rod tip. They'll talk to their buddy, they'll drink beer, they're not paying attention. You got to hold bottom. That means constantly moving with the boat. The boat's going down, my rod tip's going up, the boat's going up, my rod tip's going down. Constantly moving that rod tip with the boat. That way you're keeping that line tight enough to feel the lead, but not tight enough to disturb the lead on the bottom. And then the third golden rule from Captain Mark Hubbard himself is making sure you crank, don't yank. So 3 golden rules is my biggest tip. Hook your bait so it doesn't spin. Hold bottom. Don't let your lead bounce on the bottom. Just keep it still on the bottom. Tight enough to feel keep the line tight enough to feel the lead, but not tight enough to disturb it. And then crank, don't yank when you feel that bite. So hopefully that answers your question there, Greg. Eric Deskin said, watching from Hudson, had a blast this weekend on the 39-hour trip as always. Well, Eric, I'm sure you had a blast. You caught 2 of the 3 jackpot winning fish. He took home 2/3 of the jackpot this weekend. So Eric killed it out there. Good to see you, Eric. I'm glad you had fun, and always good to see you and your family out fishing with us. Wayne Reed said, what kind of salt do you use for brining bait? Ionized, plain, or sea salt? I get that question a lot. Honestly, Wayne, I had no idea there was so many different kinds of salt, and typically I just use the cheapest. Hate to let y'all down, but I just go to Publix, get a big box or a big bag of salt, and whatever is the cheapest kind, cheapest available is what I grab. And honestly, it changes every time. And I wouldn't say that I notice one being better than the other. Uh-oh. I don't know what just happened there. Maybe I cut out or not. I don't know. It seems like we're back up and running here. So, next question is, when using live bait for mangroves, when do you start reeling? As soon as you feel the bite, or do you hesitate a bit? I typically, it depends on how big of a bait you're using for those mangrove snapper. If you're using a smaller bait for the mangroves, you're going to reel a little bit quicker. But most of the time, you're going to have to let that fish eat. Mangrove snapper, they come up and snap at that bait, and then they'll do a circle and they'll turn around and eat that bait. So you don't want to reel at the first crank like you would with a dead bait. You're going to have to wait a few seconds and wait for that fish to turn around and try to eat that live bait. Oh, dang, that hurt. My hands are all cut up, and I got a nice grouper gill plate the other day. It looks like Larry Bryant said, how do you catch suspended mangroves over deep water? If the mangroves aren't biting, they're suspended off the bottom, Larry, the best way to target them would be with a knocker rig or a light jig head rig. Knocker rig is awesome. It's basically using a super light egg sinker on your main line, anywhere from a 1/4 ounce to even I've used as light as a 1/16 ounce egg sinker. So a super light egg sinker with a double snell rig and a dead bait is a great way to target those mangrove snapper that are suspended up off the bottom. Typically it happens, especially on our party boat trips, long range trips, when we're anchored at a spot, we're fishing for a long time. Those mangrove snapper will kind of come up off the bottom into the chum line trying to hunt down those baits. And you can feed back a live bait or a piece of dead bait into that chum line with one of those knocker rigs and pull yourself out a big old monster mangrove. Emmanuel Higgins said, I caught the end of the GT Marine and Flats Mafia information. Where can I find out time and location? Emmanuel, the best way to find out information on our Tight Lines Tuesday event with Flats Mafia and GT Marine would be to go on Facebook.com, search Tightline Tuesdays, and you can see all the information from Flats Mafia on their upcoming event. I'm just merely a guest speaker at that event. It's Tuesday night, July 17th, around 7:30 p.m. at GT Marine in Clearwater, Newport Richey area. They're giving away $15,000 in raffle prizes. Sometime after or before my seminar, I'm not sure. Hopefully it's after, so you have to stick around and deal with me. But it's going to be a great night for sure with Flats Mafia and GT Marine. We also have Bass Pro Shops July 28th at 2 p.m. Be giving away some free fishing trips there. And then this coming Saturday, July 14th, the original fishing club in the area, Tampa Bay Fishing Club, just hit 40,000 members, and they're throwing a party this Saturday at Gators in Johns Pass. So come out and join me at Gators in Johns Pass this Saturday with Tampa Bay Fishing Club. And I think that's about all the questions I have. Last one here is from Ryan May from YouTube. He said, any tips on fishing a bucktail offshore? I would fish a bucktail offshore for red grouper, and I would use it to drift across large areas of hard rock bottom with about a 2 to 4 ounce jig head on it. And I would typically like a white bucktail, and I would drift over that large area of hard rock bottom, bouncing that bucktail up off the bottom, and that red grouper would smash that big old bucktail as I drift through their area. Typically this time would be about this time of year, about 100 to about 140 foot of water would be where I'm targeting those red groupers with a bucktail. Hopefully that answered your question, Ryan. So we got to all of our YouTube and all of our Facebook questions, and we talked a lot about our events coming up. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video tonight. We had a lot of viewers. I appreciate y'all tuning in. Remember, every Sunday night, 8:30 p.m. for about an hour, we'll be doing these live fishing seminar and Q&As. Remember, if you're too busy to go fishing, you're just too darn busy. Hopefully we'll see you sometime soon at Hubbard's Marina, or we'll see you this Saturday at Gators on the Pass with a Tampa Bay Fishing Club. We'll see you Tuesday, July 17th for Flats Mafia, GT Marine, fishing conversation, fishing seminar, and then Saturday, July 28th, 2 p.m. Bass Pro Shops. And or sometime soon at Hubbard's Marina or inside Johns Pass. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Just simply search Hubbard's Marina. Share this video for us. Tune in this coming Sunday night at 8:30 p.m. for the next one. We're gonna cure our choppy video problems We're going to have a much better stream for you next week. And every week, it's only going to get better and better. So thanks for tuning in, y'all. And y'all have a great night. Remember, if you're too busy to go fishing, you're just too busy. Thanks for tuning in, guys.